All right. Instead of showing you, as usual, some tutorials or some tips and tricks on how to run ads for your e-commerce brand, today, how about we show some practical example of that? And I just decided to share with you a case study breakdown of how we generated over 130,000 pounds or about $170,000 USD for one of Wizo Media's clients within a single week. My name is Justin and I'm the founder of Wizo Media, an e-commerce marketing agency specializing in elevating thriving brands by simplifying e-commerce growth. Before we get started, make sure to leave a like, subscribe, as well as turn on post notifications to be one of the first to know about these cutting edge e-commerce marketing tips posted on our channel every week. So let's get going with that case study. So today I'm about to break down to you, first of all, what happened, what are the numbers that we generated, then do a bit of a breakdown of the before, what did we do before launching these ads, before creating the campaign strategy, what was the sort of pre-sale, pre-events era, and then gonna walk you through the nitty gritty so that way you can take something out of this and apply that to your own strategy. So let's get into an overview. So that client over the span of a week generated about 130,000 pounds, as you can see from the beginning of April 2022. And out of that, as you can see, based on our campaigns, we generated from Facebook alone 25,000 pounds out of that at a ROAS of 14.27. And again, that is within a single week. Now, how did we generate these numbers? How did we generate over 25,000 pounds at a ROAS of 14x? So first of all, it was all about warming up and making sure that we were filling up the funnel. So for their current audience, for their existing client base, we actually ran a lot of lead generation ads, and we even did that also on cold. So we only did it for a day. It didn't run for that long, but that got them about 50 additional signups to their email list. Again, we were pretty late with that. That was not the bulk of the strategy prior to the launch. Still got them about 50 extra signups. So assuming they have a pretty good cost per recipient, or at least revenue per recipient with their email list, then that got them some extra revenue right there with just very little budget put on these ads. Now, where things really happened prior to that launch was we were able to capitalize on incredibly low CPMs for that brand. As you can see right there, this is actually one of our testing campaigns. So this is one of our cold campaigns that is just testing different audiences, creatives, copywriting combinations. This is basically our sandbox campaign where we're testing a lot of new stuff in there. And as you can see on screen, the CPM was 2.59 pounds. So that is very, very cheap CPM right there. The why behind that is that we're using very niched audiences with that client. They have a very specific type of brand that appeals to vintage buyers. So people that like vintage clothing, essentially. And that allowed us to target some very specific people within the space, some specific music bands, and basically some pool of audiences that are probably not being targeted a lot on Facebook. So that allowed us to have these very low CPMs, which, as you can see, is a byproduct of that. We had an overall reach for that campaign of 250,000 people, about close to 5,000 link clicks. 4,680 link clicks to be exact. And that was all in the couple of days prior to the launch or event that we had with that client. So it allowed us to fill up the funnel. Out of those 5,000 clicks, only 16 converted. That campaign was really just to start generating a lot of traffic, a lot of attention to the brand. And keep in mind that out of the reach that is shown here, a lot of people went to the site, but also a lot of people simply interacted with the ads, which was good enough for us to start getting them into the funnel and then retarget them when the time came to launch the actual campaigns. So warming up phase, to kind of summarize that, it was doing a little bit of lead gen to get them some extra email signups. And it was also to simply capitalize and double down and increase the budget on our testing campaign, as we were seeing some very, very low CPMs. So that was a good time to fill up the just funnel as a whole, get some extra purchases. I mean, as I mentioned earlier, 16 people still converted from that campaign, which is not too shabby. But the main objective here was to simply fill up the retargeting pool for when the time came. Now, within the testing campaign, the main thing that we actually tested was audiences. So we were actually pretty new with that specific client. We had only been working with them for about 2 to 3 weeks at that point. It was still relatively new, so we were just getting used to their brand as a whole. So a lot of our work, when we first start working with the client, is on the audience side of things, is seeing what audiences can we get the best CPMs, the best click-through rate, the most amount of conversions, and ultimately the better ROAS. So it was using all of these best audiences that we had from the testing campaign. As you've seen, low CPMs meant we could have more budget put on these and still be pretty profitable. What ended up happening is we had a couple audiences that we pulled over essentially for the sale and events that started happening on April 1st. With these sort of niche audiences, again, allowed us to keep that very low CPM. So we had that within the testing phase, but we were able to keep those very low CPMs even during the sale. And that client specifically has some very strict brand guidelines. We work with many different types of brands. We work right now with brands, that are pretty new to this whole space. They're spending about $100 a day. We're mainly communicating with the owner. When that ends up happening, with these types of brands, is they're pretty open. They don't really know what to look for. We can do pretty much whatever we want in terms of copywriting, in terms of creatives, as long as results are there. And then we have on the other side of things, we have much bigger brands who are a little bit more structured and essentially have some departments internally that want things to be done in a very specific way, which is totally cool. And there's these guys, which I think fall in the middle space of that, but they were especially strict about the creative types and how to use those when it came to Facebook. So as you guys may know, if you're using creative formats on Facebook and Instagram ads that are not meant for a specific format that they're being advertised in. So to give you an example, you're using a 9:16 image and you're using that for feed, that's going to be cropped, right? Or the opposite, 16:9, and you're using that for stories, that's also going to be cropped. And when something is cropped on Instagram, as an example, it'll kind of fill the background with like a similar color scheme than the ad. These clients didn't want that. They wanted something to be appropriate for every single format. Also very specific about, for a specific ad. Something that we tried with these guys that we were not too keen on trying prior to working with them, as we found that it would usually not work that well, but we're happily surprised to see that it worked well with this brand. It's to mix videos and photos within the same ad. So a single ad, depending on the placement, in some cases it was like more of a GIF/animation, and it was like a photo in others. So it was mixing a video and a photo together. So with these strict brand guidelines, I think that left us with very little margin for error. But I think this helped immensely with cold ads because this was very professional and overall brand look. I'm not saying by this that not using the right placements is unprofessional, because this is, again, a tool that is offered by Facebook and you can still run ads. I mean, for our own agency, we do run ads for the agency that are not necessarily meant for that placement. They still do get conversions, but which one would look the best, which one would look the most professional and would look, would entice somebody to purchase more, is definitely something like that. So I do believe this played some key part in helping us get some pretty good results on the cold side of things. Now for retargeting, we widened the retargeting pool for the sale. So we opened up the audiences to fill in for some more time frame. To give you an example, sometimes we may be retargeting only for 7 days or maybe 30 days max, right? Whereas with that, we were targeting people that had not purchased for quite a while, or just a simple, very wide pool of retargeting. So in a sale or event like that was a very big sale for them. They were so liquidating a very big part of their last collection. So with that said, there is for sure a lot of win back opportunities to be capitalized on, which is what we wanted to do with this is to win back some of these customers that may have seen the collection in the past but weren't too keen on purchasing for whatever reason, but now with a discounted price may be incentivized to do that. Or with all of the new people that we brought in from, as you saw earlier, the very big reach that we had the days prior to the launch, essentially it was a good time to get them through the door. So as a little bit of a summary of that sale and event, again, they generated as a business 130,000 pounds. We were responsible for 25,000 pounds of that within the first week. What you can see and what is very interesting to the right is the returning customer rate. Obviously with the sale, promo, or event, retargeting is huge at first. This is always what we're seeing with a seller event. The first day is heavy on retargeting. As you can see by the purple line, there are a lot more returning customers than new customers. But we were very happy to see that as time went on, the results didn't drop on cold. Cold maintained very high results throughout the week. And as you can see, basically as days went by, the gap between first time and returning customers was pretty much was very, very close. And then towards the end, essentially April 7th, April 8th, it was a flip. It was a lot more first time customers rather than returning customers. So this really is where we saw the shifts between, you know, they're tapping into the current audience versus our efforts in bringing in new customers and doing client acquisition for that brand. So if we go back to the results as shared at the beginning, the bottom campaign, the most bottom campaign you can see is cold. Then the second one from the bottom is retargeting, and both other campaigns are cold. There's actually, I believe it's the second one from the top has a mix between cold and retargeting inside of that one, but the most top and bottom ones are strictly cold. So what you can see from that is the budget split for cold versus retargeting was about a 70-30 in this case. You can clearly see, you know, from the top one and bottom one, you know, 4.35 ROAS on cold at the bottom. At the top, you know, 17.7 ROAS on cold. And then second from the top, the one that starts, you know, you see the beginning of, it's about to say hero, essentially. It's a 10.59. That is a bit of a mix between some cold and retargeting. And finally, obviously retargeting that got, you know, amazing results out of that at 30 points, 37 in ROAS. But nonetheless, that retargeting, there was a big part of the audiences that was re-engagements. Again, we filled up the pool so much prior to that. And as you saw earlier, not a lot of people purchased from these ads, as the goal was just to send people to the sites. And we really saw those efforts pay off during this campaign. I think a bit of a general lesson that I'm saying here is don't be afraid to quote unquote waste budget before you are to do a campaign for promotion, event, launch, because you may not get a lot of sales with reach campaigns, or you may not get a lot of sales if you just simply want to drive traffic. But when the time comes to actually launch your event, promo, sale, whatever that may be, you have a lot of warm people that went to the sites. They didn't really purchase for any reason, but you're giving them a good enough reason for them to purchase for the first time. So that helps a lot in creating this new relationship with your customers. Now, if you're an e-commerce brand or store owner making at least $20,000 to $30,000 a month with your brand, I invite you to click on the first link in the description down below to book in a very short 15-minute demo call with myself. On that call, we'll take a look at your business, see if you're a good fit to work for our e-commerce marketing program. And if that's the case, we'll end up helping you scale. If not, worst comes to worst, you'll leave with free actionable advice to implement on your own. So on that note, I'm gonna wish you guys an awesome day. Make sure to check out other videos on the channel for some more useful e-commerce marketing tips. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.